Welcome guys to another segment of Word of the Day. My name is Caesar with Inspire Movement. Today we find ourselves in a beautiful Winter Park, Florida. Behind me is Casa Feliz, which means happy house when translated to English. With that, we're going to explore our word for this week. The word is revenge. So when you think of revenge, you think of the carrying out of that bitter desire to injure another person for a wrong committed to oneself or those that feel like oneself, such as your loved ones, essentially. So and there's a number of reasons why you shouldn't exact revenge. We're just going to explore a few. The first of which is that you're not going to feel better even if you do, right? So if somebody does something wrong to you, just because you exacted revenge, you may get sort of like an immediate sensation of reward for having, exacted that revenge, but it's only short or ephemeral, right? It's not going to be something that's going to make the incident that was so uncomfortable for you go away. Another reason is it's probably going to make you feel worse when you do. So, while the incident itself, it's something that you'll probably forget, whatever it was, over time potentially, what you probably won't forget is that feeling of guilt for what you did. So that's one of the reasons why I think exacting revenge is something that is really fruitless. It's not something that's going to be to your benefit. Something else to consider is the fact that it's wasteful, right? So the number one commodity that we have in life is what? Our time. Our time is so much a great commodity for us all, and basically making the perpetrator your focal point is so wasteful. So that's another reason why I think exacting revenge is really a worthless sort of affair. Another thing to think about, whether you believe it or not, is something such as karma, right? So what goes around comes around. You do something bad to somebody else, it could come back and haunt you later on. And in that sense, whatever you do could come back and just backfire on you, right? There may be a whole series of repercussions to what you did that you weren't really considering when you did it. You just acted on impulse. It felt right at the moment, and you never thought of the consequences after that. Another thing to consider is that two wrongs don't make a right, right? So just because somebody did something to you doesn't mean that when you do it back to them, somehow it's justified if it's just plain old wrong. Another thing that you also need to consider is the retaliation loop. So basically, things go circular, and they do something to you, you do something to them. So it's a never-ending loop of revenge or retaliation, which is, again, fruitless, worthless. It's not going to get you to where you want to go, to a place of healing. I think it was Gandhi that said it best. He had an excerpt, basically, on the law of Hammurabi, which we've all heard of, right? An eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth, right? Somebody does something to me and essentially plucks my eye out, I'm going to pluck their eye out. They bust my tooth, I'm going to bust their tooth out. Well, he came and said, well, an eye for an eye winds up making the whole world blind. So think about that. It's pretty good wisdom, I think. So how do we respond to a situation such as revenge? What can we do? Psychologists or psychological scientists have studied why it is that human beings have this need for revenge. There is almost an immediate gratification and a sense of a reward. So if somebody were to hit you, physically assault you, there is sort of like a little bit of a reward in giving that punch right back to the person, but only in the immediate. Because again, what lingers more so than the punch that you received, you'll heal, is that lingering feeling of thought, of guilt, of what you may have done to that person, especially if you don't have an aggressive type personality, that will linger. But what can we do? So what is it that we can do? Well, one thing that we can do is try to think of the perpetrator, the person that did something to you, as someone that you want to make irrelevant in the long run. And in order for you to do that, you can't make them the focal point of all your energies because you have the absolute need to retaliate, right? So basically, I think Frank Sinatra had another quote, and he says, the best revenge, the absolute best revenge is massive success. And I know that sounds a little probably strange at first, but what that meaning to say is, if you focus those energies that you're trying to channel up in order to exact revenge on you, on your aspirational goals, on what makes you successful, on what it is that you need to do in order to be the best version of you, then all those energies are being consumed by you, making that other person exactly what they need to be, irrelevant. So my word of advice for anybody trying to exact revenge in that immediate moment, show some restraint. I know it's difficult. Take a deep breath, bite your tongue if you need to, but just hold off, and then try to channel those energies inwardly and say, how can I use all these energies for a reward that's only going to benefit me, truly benefit me, to get me to where I want to go. So that would be my word of advice. As I personally reflect on it, I can think back to a time in my, primary school years, basically, where I had an incident with a young man at the locker rooms. I was tying my shoe, and I don't recall the exact details of the incident, but he blindsided me by smacking me across the face, sort of blindsiding me, and startling me, really. And I guess I was so caught by surprise that in the startle, I basically was motionless and did nothing about it. Obviously, that put a heavy dent on my ego. Fortunately for me, the physical assault in that sense stopped at the slap, but there was a little bit of a lingering harm to me in the sense that I wanted to exact revenge in the worst way, particularly in the way that I reacted, which is just to freeze. To make a long story short, that young man wound up leaving the town, but what lingered behind me, my face healed. There wasn't even a mark on my face when it happened, was basically that sort of not met revenge or desire for revenge that I wanted to exact. And I had to really work internally to let the incident go, let that young man go, so that I could heal internally and move on with the rest of my life. So that's just one case in which I can think of, a sense of revenge that I wanted to sort of beckon or bring about that hurt me more so than anybody else, to be honest. So even had I carried it out, it would have been just as fruitless. So with that, I hope that you guys take some excerpts or some good thoughts or positive outlook on dealing with this. It's something that we all do, but we can do so much better by, again, focusing our energies inward, focusing on us, focusing what makes us better, and letting the perpetrator of that harm done to us be irrelevant, which is exactly what they need to be. I hope that you guys have an awesome remainder of the week. Again, it's always a blessing and honor to be, a privilege to be with you on these points of contact. And again, seek us out on Instagram, seek us out on Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel. We have, I think now, 3 or 4 recorded sessions that will be coming out over the next few weeks. And a couple of new series, one a series on servanthood, another series on music and the arts, which I know that you're going to love. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay blessed.